Welcome to the Divine Feminine Revolution podcast, where women are magical and empowered. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Monday, psychologist turned transformational feminine business coach. This podcast is for you if you want to prioritize your own pleasure, face your fears, and manifest your desires. This podcast is sponsored by the Fearless Feminine Academy, where I teach women how to turn their trauma into their superpowers. My goal is to show women that we can heal our world by creating time and financial freedom by doing whatever the fuck we want. Are you ready for the Divine Feminine Revolution? Let's get vulnerable and go deep. I'm so honored that you're here. Okay, hey everybody. I'm Dr. Monday. I'm back with you all with the Fearless Feminine, and my guest today, Molly Mae, is an awesome healer. Let's go ahead and have you do your own little brag intro.
Yeah, so I am Molly Mae. I'm a healer and I do a lot of work with past life regressions, Reiki, channeling, tarot. There's so many things that I do that it's like kind of hard to narrow it down, but I kind of like encompass it all under the umbrella of intuition. So I really like to help people to push themselves beyond what they think is normal or okay or like in like the societal norms. I kind of like to push people past that so they can really recognize within themselves how incredible it all is that we have these amazing gifts and we all have them. That's what makes it so amazing. But yeah, that's what I really like to do. I love just how magical we all are as individuals. It's so incredible to watch the growth that I have within myself. What I've walked myself through all of the stuff that I've done before I share it with others, and then to see it's reciprocated within my clients and how they're receiving their intuition, or how they've been able to navigate like with guides or through past lives. It's so interesting. It's so intriguing to watch the flow of how that goes. So yeah, that's what
All of those things are like my favorite things. So I can't wait to talk with you in depth about it. I just had a therapy client the hour before, and just within a month or two of knowing me, they've like now like infiltrated the crystal store, they're clearing their house, and their anxiety is so much better. And so I think once we really like remember who we are, whether it's like through clearing from the past lives or just like embracing our magic, it's amazing how like awesome life can get. But when we're trying to control everything and make it like fit into this 3D paradigm, like it can just totally stress you out. So tell me a little bit about like how did you like come to realize your gifts?
Oh wow, that's a long story, but yes, I will tell it. So it actually started happening to me when I was in high school, and I really just started to understand that there was really big different things about me. But I realized earlier this year that I actually knew for a long time, even when I was a kid. So this is a story that's really fun. I used to tell my mom, I was like, Mom, I just feel like if I like touch people or like just anything, I just know things. And she was like, she just let me sit with it. She didn't explain to me that that was empathy. She just let me roll with it. Like it was awesome parenting at that point to let me discover what being like an empath really is and actually having a description of it before ever, coming into contact. So I knew for a while that I had gifts, but I think a lot of it came about, like I said, when I was in high school. I just started to, I started to read tarot in high school. I learned like the ins and outs and everything. I was like, I need to know this because this makes sense to me. And it's really, once I formulated that communication with spirit, with God, whatever you want to call it, it just kind of all fell through this little rabbit hole in my brain. It just kind of all came through. And yeah, there's so many things that like brought about the healing that I had experienced. But I think, I had a really dark kind of outlook on reality for a long time because it felt so surface for me, and then when I was on a lot of medication when I was younger, I was on like Adderall and Vyvanse and antidepressants, and so that kind of catapulted when I got off of those medications. So I was on them for 10 years, you know. After I got off of them, I really started to understand like, oh my gosh, like there's so many other feelings that I was like desensitizing myself to when I was taking those medications. And it really just, blew up how I was feeling. I had to relearn everything. I had to relearn how to eat. I had to relearn how to exercise because it's just like those medications, they affect you so much. So that was, I think, for me, when I finally cleared my head, it was like, whoa, I'm really powerful. Like, this is amazing. Like, I can do a lot. I just know a lot. And yeah, then my clairvoyance and clairaudience kind of just came through in such a big way. I started channeling more. You can actually like witness the progression on my Instagram, which is kind of funny because they're like, you'll see like these tiny, like sad, like post on the bottom of like my Instagrams and whatever, and then like you go forward and you see like these long like channelings. It's pretty interesting, but yeah, that's kind of how it went. It's really cool.
I love that. One book that really helped me understand is like Doreen Virtue has a book about like the
Mm.
caring of indigo children.
Yeah.
She ended up like writing with Crayon. And I think it's really good. They address like the mental health meds, and I just see that a lot. I've always worked with like teenagers who, are intuitively, if people come to my office, whether it's for coaching or for therapy, like they're a healer of some sort, even if they don't
Yeah.
identify that way, they've got
Yeah.
the gift. And I
Mhm.
was told very young in my professional career that I was going to be kind of like this bridge, because I think a lot of people were so scared of like bipolar or schizophrenia or some of these serious things that I think we lump intuition and intuitive gifts and channeling all into the like kind of forbidden realm as far as mental health goes. And I just don't think that's right, because it is such a gift. And I think so many of like our great mystics are on medication and kind of dulling their gifts. And so, not to shame anyone, if you need your medication,
Yeah.
like fine, that's
100%.
like, absolutely fine. And, I think that with anything, there's a gift in it for you. So,
Hmm.
where did you start? Did you start with Reiki? Did you start with past lives? Like, what did you
I
find?
started with tarot actually. That was kind of what influenced, a lot of where I came from and everything. But also, I feel like it really started with channeling, like if I'm going to be real with myself, because, like tarot was kind of a byproduct of me channeling. It was a way that I could create a visual to explain what I was saying, or already thinking. Because it's funny when I pull cards, even to this day, I do this like I'll start talking to the cards when my client's with me, and it's so funny to just watch. Like the clients are so confused. Like they're like, "Why are you like?" You're like talking to them and you like already are reading them, and I'm like, yeah, I know, but it's just like how I have to like communicate with them. It's really funny, but um but yeah, and yes, I started with tarot and channeling, and it's just been such a amazing journey to like work with those tools. And it kind of happened so naturally for me. It was just kind of I flowed with what was coming up, and it kept telling me. I mean, well, actually, I had a teacher of mine who pushed me into it. They were like, "You need to do this. Like, you need to do this for a living." And I was so resistant. I was so resistant. I was like, I don't know. I was just like, I didn't want to like step on anybody's toes. Like, it was like this whole realm of things I wasn't sure of. And then I kind of moved into a place where I found it within myself, like reciprocated that energy a little bit, and really brought it into beingness with, my business and everything else. And it's been such a wild journey.
Yeah, and I find that it's like really great for intuitives to have business because like we are not meant to be working 8 to 5s. Like it's just not gonna happen. We have to honor our sensitivities and our rhythms and cycles and everything. And so I remember for me, like I started doing my Reiki training like while I was in grad school. And so I feel like energy work and my counseling just like really fused. And I didn't really know it at the time, but I was channeling as well. And so like what I would say to someone when they came to me for therapy really was like intuitive, kind of clear audience messages.
they just were like, wow, she's like a natural. She's like a great therapist, but it was like a little something extra. So, it's
Mhm.
kind of funny to like trust that. So, what is, because I think channeling is one of those words that sometimes people are like afraid of it. What's been your experience with that? Like, how do you view it?
Oh,
Like when you're,
yeah, yeah. It's really interesting. So, kind of how I do it is I have a really close connection with my guides.
Mhm.
And what they told me is they said, let it funnel through your crown chakra, hit your throat chakra, and just come out of your mouth. So it's kind of like you're kind of like word vomiting the generalized feelings of whether it be for you or for collective or for somebody else. It kind of just comes into like this natural flow with how you're speaking. And sometimes it's kind of hard to explain because there's so many different points of reference that are in channeling that you can tap into. But I know with my intuition circles, I definitely that I've done in the past. It's interesting because one person will come in and they're really resistant to channeling or to letting those words just flow, and by the end of the circles they're just like, yeah, let's do this, like they're getting into the flow of everything. But it's always different. I think channeling is just one of those things that it can be, it can be, more micro, but it can also be really macro. And I think we can all take, like, whatever channeling it is, I think we can all take something from it, whether it be for somebody else or for yourself too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I totally feel that. Like I always just as a therapist, like people would just tell me. So I didn't have to like intuit it or like, sort of like have that visionary piece because they were already like telling me all their secrets and issues.
Yeah.
But I remember I was at a medical intuition workshop over at
Mhm.
and with Dr. Mona Lisa Schultz, who she's amazing. She's a psychiatrist and she's a medical intuitive. So she's kind of got the science and the gift. And she
Whoa.
talks a lot about how like trauma actually like rewires our brain to be more intuitive. That whole like walking on eggshells moment where we're like trying to create safety. And then, then some of us are just like very empathic in general. But we had this exercise where we were supposed to do like a medical intuition reading just based on someone's birthday and their initials. And I just did not think that that was something that like I could do. And then when I did my reading, it was like 100% accurate. And it was this moment where I was like, that's why therapy is so intense for me because I'm getting the full thing, and the empathic thing of all the feelings and all the, sometimes the ancestry and the past lives and the whole bit. And I feel like a lot of that stuff, I just actually, my little calendar today said, that which is blocked and buried within you forms the root of fear from Mickey Singer, The Untethered Soul. And I thought that was so good because I feel like a lot of times that's past life stuff. So tell me a little bit about like, how did you come to study past lives? What's it been like to do past life work with your clients?
Yeah, so I actually started not too long ago, but I think I got my Beyond Quantum Healing certification in February. So yeah, that's been such an amazing journey. So kind of how I got into it is a friend of mine does QHHT, and I always had an interest in it, but it just never solidified into like something that I could do. And I became really close to this friend, and she and I would do sessions together. And I came out of my first session and I was like, I'm going to do this for a living. It was like just so quick for me to come into this place where I was excited about where I was going. I was like, this is what I want to do. Um, and that was such a magical moment there. I mean, I've at this point, I think I've gone through like 16 of my own past lives,
Mhm.
which is, actually it's a little bit more than that because there was one session where I went through like a ton of them. But yeah, that's just been such a wild journey. I just love how impactful, like I call it like the conscious field of resonance. Like I just love how it seeps into you and helps to heal like little parts of you. I don't know if you've ever received that, like, have you done like beyond quantum healing or QHHT?
I haven't done that particular modality, but I've definitely done
Okay.
like past life regressions and reading
Yeah.
stuff. So
Yeah. Cool.
tell me
Okay.
more about that.
Yeah. What's interesting is I can't speak for other sessions, but for Beyond Quantum Healing and QHHT, we actually go and we talk to the higher self. And that's what is so impactful is I think, as I've gone through like my own past lives and everything, like I only speak from my experience. I can't speak for others' experience. But those are I get some of like the most deep questions I need answered in the higher self portion. I think for me now, it's like that whole section of the sessions is so important for me because there's so many layers that can get uncovered. I mean, I've channeled, gods and goddesses like, for my own specific healing. And, I'm working on trying to post some of those, but it's hard sometimes. But yeah, there's just so much about past lives that I think is so interesting. We all come here for such beautiful purposes, and being able to kind of light that up within somebody or just remember, their purpose. I like to think of, working with past lives as just we're tapping into memories. We just have to sink into a place where we can receive those memories, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. Like some of the stuff I've studied has been like around like bringing some of like your talents from past lives forward, like through the Akashic record. And I've been not
Yes.
super deep into that, but like I just feel like as a humanity, like we're doing that more and more, just kind of like
Hmm.
on our own. And
Yeah.
you
No,
know,
I totally agree. I totally agree with that.
especially like for me when I had my daughter, I was pregnant during 2012, which was like a big shift point. And then, in some circles they say that really like 2013 and beyond is kind of like a whole nother like era.
Hmm.
It does feel like very true. And so I think, the kids born in that age range, and gosh, the astrology has been so intense for the past few years. I can only imagine what these like littles
Hmm.
their human gifts are. And then I think at the same time, while we have our like past life strengths and gifts, we also like have our past life traumas. And so that's something that we've dealt with pretty much every round of the Fearless Feminine Academy, is that most people, if they're a healer in this lifetime, they've been a healer in past lifetimes, and that hasn't always gone very well. If you're a witch or a midwife or a healer of some sort, like a lot of times, as we know, even in present day, like the other has been persecuted. And so I think a lot of times what I notice around healers is they kind of struggle to like charge their worth or to like get visible. And they carry a lot of fear that they'll be like misunderstood or persecuted in some way. And so I feel like clearing those past lives, that like if that happened in a past life, I think can give like so much permission to just like embrace your current gift. And I think it's a really exciting time because I think it's like becoming safe to just like come out of the broom closet or like whatever you want to call it, come out with your gifts. Because that's the thing, like working in mental health, it's like, good job security. Well, same thing for healing. I mean, I think we're at such a revolutionary crossroads at this moment. Like, it's important that we all come out with like our gifts.
Hmm. We all have that, unique medicine to share. And I think honestly, like everybody I meet and talk to has that unique medicine. And, it's just how do you want to create it? How do you want to refine it? How do you want to develop it? Whatever way that looks like. I think that there's so many gifts that we all have that it's just, especially at this time, it's so important that we share them with, even if it's just our friends or um, our partners or whoever it is. It's just like sharing them with, the people that are in your life. And it's just beautiful. I love like the whole um, medicine man woman journey. Like I think that's so beautiful. Like it's just so interesting to see how people, especially healers, develop over time. I think it's beautiful. But yeah, I love that.
And I think, like self-expression is so healing, and I think that
Yeah.
there's been such pressure to like conform in certain ways that I'm really excited, like I think with your generation and below in particular, like as we are getting to the age where we're old enough to like have power in the traditional structure and like be out in the world and like get to own our own inner authority and our sovereignty. It's like really exciting to see people just, come out with their creative and healing gifts.
Totally agree. It's so much fun to. I know, like, it's interesting because when I started my journey myself, like, I had kind of like several people who were with me on that journey who were also developing their own healing gifts, and it's just amazing to watch what has come about within that time. And now we're like all like trading sessions with each other, and like we're like, here, you have to learn this. Like, we have like group talks like on Instagram and stuff, just like stuff that we've all been working towards. And I just, the sharing, I think, is the most like impactful thing. It's just like somebody feels safe enough to share their gifts or their medicine with you. That's just, oh, it's so beautiful to watch people just come alive with that co-creative force, with their how they're trying to interact with the world or what they're trying to bring into the world. I think it's so beautiful.
I think that's huge, is like that sisterhood and support, because you really do need like a small kind of sacred container to like practice these things and really like have someone like validate it and mentor you with it to the point where like you trust yourself enough to kind of go for it. And so I love seeing that like accessibility piece come across the internet. Like, I feel like it's kind of like the wild, wild west in the sense that like these traditional structures where you had to like get a degree or you had to like get a certain training or whatever, like people are just like claiming that they have a gift and they're going for it. And, they're like kind of sidestepping the patriarchy. And it kind of makes me so excited to see that people just like, it's like kind of going back in a way to like more like indigenous vibe, like where it's just like you are who you are versus like all these sort of like man-made structures that we like hoops we have to jump through.
Mhm. Nope, I'm not going to do that.
Did you have any fears about like starting a business or like doing
Oh,
it
God.
professionally, going online?
Yeah, I think really I felt like nobody would take me seriously, um, because I knew that my intuition was really strong, and I knew that I could work one on one with people. But I also was really afraid of coming into that much of a visibility with my gifts, because at the time, my parents, like, they kind of thought I was a little crazy, like, and so did kind of, I mean, because what kind of happened in my life was I was in massage school, and I decided, like, halfway through, I was like, I'm going to finish the class, but I'm not going to get the certification. And it was just a really big stepping stone for me. And honestly, like, I'm really glad that I didn't, because, like, I don't think my life would be a lot different if I had done that. But yeah, and so as I was working through that, I realized, I was like, I have a lot of gifts. Like, I was reading cards like in massage school and everything. That's where I learned about Reiki and everything else, all different types of healing. So yeah, I think really I was just scared because I saw how people, like, I've been treated really badly for, like, doing what I do. Like, I have, I've had those moments where people are just trying to bring me down. I understand, not everybody's going to understand that. I think that in a way kind of brought me down too, just a little bit. It was just, but at the same time, I still pushed forward. I still, recognized my own strength and power to invite in that new life for myself, because I knew it wasn't going to vibe with me to like do a normal 9 to 5 job. I couldn't do it. Like, I tried, it was not working. And but from that point forward, I started to, like, it's almost like I was like reading a book, and as I was reading that book of myself, I became more okay with sharing myself, and my story, and how, like, in what ways I'm connected, because it began to become reciprocated by my peers. And I've talked to so many people, and I literally, everybody's had a crazy experience with their intuition, and I was like, it just kind of pushed me forward in that way. but I also had a lot of people to support me. And I think that was what really changed, you know, when I was having down days or anything, I would have people that would be like, Molly, remember. And I'm like, like I just need, like, that's all I needed. I just needed someone to tell me to remember. And I'm like, I got it. Okay, I'm good. Let me just go through this again. But I think it's such a powerful thing to allow yourself, like anybody who's watching this too or listening, um, to be vulnerable with yourself, because you have no idea what's going to come out of that. And, for me, I've had such an amazing success with just working with, it was like one on one, it was just people I knew for a long time. And then it just grew and grew and grew to like where I find interesting people just come up to me and they just start talking to me about their lives. And I'm like, I just love it. It's so amazing. I don't really have any like normal conversations anymore. Like it's just not like a thing. It's amazing. But I love it. It's so cool.
Well, that's kind of been the universal thread through all these interviews on the Fearless Feminine podcast is that basically everybody had that moment where they went a little crazy,
Yep.
according to their like family or their loved ones or whatever. And I think it's like, it is crazy to kind of go for what you want, and it shouldn't be that way. I don't usually use should, but like for emphasis.
Yeah.
um, but like, they're just trying to keep us safe. And so like, whether it's like taking, becoming a healer or taking your gifts online, like, it can feel really scary because like, how do you protect your loved one from the inevitable like criticism or like negative response or whatever that's going to happen? And yet those are just like those people's triggers. I mean, it doesn't really have anything to do with you. And, unfortunately, I think there's still like so many people who are not self-expressed and are not following their truth and their gifts that like when they see someone else doing it, they like want to squash that when really it's like, I just did a series of like sales posts that was like, don't hate her, be her, you know?
Mm,
And so it's like, you know, and I wish we could do that extra step of just being like, oh, if I'm jealous or envious or triggered by this person, like, what does she have that I'm wanting in my life, that I can claim for myself? And sometimes it's just permission to go for it.
I think jealousy and envy are such good teachers because they show you like 100% without a filter just where we need to grow, or like in including our triggers, like boiling that down back to like our ego. And there's so many things that we can help to understand and learn from that space. Just and I think, I'm honestly really grateful for the people who had triggers against me, because I think I just learned so much from that experience on how to authentically represent myself, but also not take in, the like the like nitty gritty of what they were saying, because I don't need that. It's just like all of these things, like every interaction, I feel like you have a choice to like what you're going to take in and what you're going to like leave behind, that conscious field of resonance. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so huge. And it's so freeing, when it's just like, their stuff is really about them, not about you. I know for me, like I started using like tarot cards and oracle cards like in my therapy sessions and people loved it. But I always like felt like a little bit like it was taboo, and so then when I've been doing this for years and like, obviously I got the results and I like honed everything and, had done different healings and then just incorporated them. Luckily with psychology, like mindfulness and all that stuff kind of started to come through more and more. And then I worked at a holistic treatment center and then we started to do like yoga as part of it. And we did energy work as part of it. And I was like, oh, it's so exciting just to have it like front row. Like this is what people are coming for is the holistic piece. Um, and then, but taking it online to like everybody was like really huge. I'm in a group of kind of like a mini pod of former therapists and psychologists who have become coaches. And we all have this baggage around like, can we really do this on the internet? Like there's still, I think particularly in psychology, there's still so much like fear and rules and boundaries that may or may not be effective in having these really deep relationships and conversations with people. And so I feel like online businesses and coaching is just, it's really going to rewrite how everything is done, you know? And so I feel like it's a really exciting time. And obviously, like COVID and everything else is pushing that forward as we're all, you know, kind of experiencing what the new normal is, so to speak. What do you feel like is the vision for the future, like as we're at this big like transformation crossroads?
Ooh, yeah. It's interesting because for about 3 years before this year, I was receiving, but I was also having others receive around me. The polarity between love and fear, and I was really feeling that. And I think now I'm feeling that even more just with COVID. And I think that is kind of, you know, this big shift that people keep talking about is just that polarity between love and fear. And, you know, how I feel like during this time I've been able to more easily recognize what it feels like to be in my love and what it feels like to be in my fear.
Mm.
And I think that's been kind of like a micro little journey for me to like navigate, um, where I can choose love and where I can choose fear. And it's just very interesting. But I definitely feel like that's the shift going on right now, along with, you know, like we were talking about, people recognizing that they have this unique medicine, this unique power, this unique strength. I feel like, you know, definitely we're I think all of us want to move to a place where our lives are more about healing and growing and cultivating the human experience. But at the same time, you know, we're dealing with the like patriarchy and conditioning and brainwashing that's going on in this world. So I think we have a lot of choices to make as a collective, to what we are putting our energy towards. And I mean, obviously, like we're still going to buy into a lot of that stuff for a while, but because it's just our conditioning and the way we were made. But we've been conditioned to walk through this planet. But I think that, you know, we're coming into a deeper understanding of, you know, I mean, I've noticed within my clients even recently that people are coming to me more throughout COVID because it's just, there's so many things that are being brought up to people, whether that be loss, whether that be anxiety or fear, whether that be loneliness. Like, you know, there's a lot of that like transpiring throughout the collective themes within just, I mean, at least my clients, but I'm sure you've experienced that too. um, but yeah, that's really what I'm feeling for going forward. That's what we're kind of bringing ourselves into.
Yeah, I think fear mongering has been such a tool of the patriarchy. You can definitely see it like in the more conservative politics, like how they often use fear mongering as a way to get elected. And it works because like we know from the brain that when you basically attack someone via fear, it shuts down their logical thinking. And so I think that's how we get people to kind of like vote against their own like interests of like basic human, you know, caring for people as a society, you know. And so I mean, you can see this in the media and politics and everything. And so I think particularly for empaths, for sensitives, for intuitives, you know, I think it's hard to live in such a culture of fear, and I really feel like that's what's shifting, and I think it's going to happen so quickly. Like, I mean, look what's already happened in the past few months. And I think you can kind of see that a lot of things are collapsing and it looks messy and it freaks some people out. But I think it's also like in such a quick way taking care of the things that need to collapse. And so I just think there's going to be so much like love and safety and care for each other and self-expression and just like freedom that comes out of this. Like I'm so excited for the future, and I feel like even like within my daughter's lifetime, I feel like she's going to live such a different, she already is like living such an amazing life that um full of adventure and like freedom and just like being able to go for what you want. Like I'm so excited for like my generation, the indigos, to like really have power, because we're like in our 40s, we're about to be. And then like as you all come up, and then as the little ones come up, like I just feel like that in itself is gonna like, crush the patriarchy because they're just gonna age out, and like the younger ones, like we're just coming from a place of love, and I think it's, with trauma, like usually when people have trauma, which obviously the older generations have a lot of, they live through like world wars and depressions and all kinds of things, a lot of times what it does is it closes you. It either opens you way up or it closes you way down. It usually is one or the two extremes, and so I feel like some of the younger generations, we've been encouraged to like, tend to our feelings and, be more expressed and more creative. And now we all have like our virtual platforms. So it's much easier to like basically just like hand the healers the microphone and then we'll be good to go.
I love that.
Yeah, me too. Well, so like tell me a little bit about like what does like a typical session look like for you? I'm sure it's like really different each time, but like tell me a little bit about the work that you do.
Yeah, so most of my sessions, like aside from past life stuff, it's really, I love really getting to know people. I want my clients to be able to authentically express themselves to me so I can then kind of work with, what we need to possibly work on or go through. In my tarot sessions, I kind of have like 4 tiers to my work. So in the first tier, it's like channeling, personalized meditations, tarot channeling, and there's some other stuff in there too, but that's like the first tier. That's kind of like, if people come to me and they're like, I want an introduction, that's kind of what I'll put people towards. Then I have my classes, which is the second tier, and in that I have my tarot class and intuition development course, and those are probably the 2 most popular things that I do because people really like, I've noticed people really like to learn and they want to be able to express their own magic too. So that's the big ones. And then, of course, my past life regression sessions are kind of the third tier. I like to really get to know people on a really deep level. We talk for almost 2 hours sometimes before the session even starts. So sometimes my sessions can be pretty long, but they're beautiful. I love being able to work with people in that way. It's magical. And then the last thing that I do is something that I've recently come out with, which is my mentorships. So this is kind of all encompassing. It's more kind of like a coaching. It's a 10-week kind of program where we just talk and talk and talk about where we can grow. I do meditations, exercises to kind of remind you and open up those gifts, which is stuff that I talk about in my course, and I kind of bring that through like a little bit because my course is only 5 lessons, but I think it's important that if you want to have somebody to work with doing the actual action stuff, that we can have a space where that can be cultivated too. And I try to give people as much as I can. I love like seeing the magic in everybody's lives. I think that's what's so beautiful is people will come to me and write me these like long messages about like how they've awakened and within themselves, and how they like, I hear this all the time. People are like, I think I'm crazy, and I'm like, no, like you're not crazy. You're freaking magical. Like look at how amazing that is that you can actually have, what you're feeling reciprocated by the messages that you're receiving in the universe. I think it's so incredible. So it's kind of my sessions, they're probably like, most of them are like an hour to 2 hours, just kind of depends. And we just really get into I like working with patterns a lot. I think that's one of the things I'm a Virgo. I'm really analytical. So I like get in there and I'm like, but I also have like the spiritual side of myself too. And I'll get in there and just ask those tough questions. I really hold people accountable to, if they've said something to me before, I remember that and I'll bring it up again. I'm like, well, you told me this, like we'll work through it together. But it's really interesting. And I like noticing where where people want to grow too. I think that's something that a lot of teachers and healers can sometimes miss. It's like, I like seeing like, all right, well, you're working with me. Like, what do you want to get from it? Like, how can I support you in what you want to do, what you want to cultivate within your life? And um, I just love how different everybody is. It's so cool. Just how I'm thinking of like tons of different clients right now and just how they've walked themselves through this reality and how they've grown. But really, I like to remind people of their gifts and how to use them in a practical way. I always tell people this. It's like, I think, a lot of times it can be like you're searching for something that's like way outside of yourself, but really it's like, make it easy for yourself. Like, make it as easy as possible for yourself to receive these downloads, gifts, whatever wants to come to you. And when we kind of just surrender that a little bit and just kind of sink into it a little bit more, and really start doing those actions, that's when things can really change and cultivate in people's lives. But yeah, that's kind of what I do.
Yeah, and that's when life gets really magical, is when we let it be easy and we just like open it up to receive back all the good stuff we've already put into the world. And that, like, I love seeing that happen for myself, even for the people that I work
Yeah.
with. It's like so like life affirming. Well, I just want to say you're like totally channeling some priestess vibes with your head wrap, and I feel like kind of in and out. Like I feel like I could see like a an old timey version of you as well as you were talking about this. And then I just love that you're sharing your story and your wisdom, and I really appreciate that. So tell us, like, how do we find you on the interweb? Like, how do we work with you? Tell me all the things.
Yeah, so really, I'm pretty laid back when it comes to that. I think that's one of my challenges as a healer. Still working with that, but I'm currently developing my website. It's not ready yet, but I have my Instagram, which is Molly Mae _rainbow beam, and then I also have my Facebook page, which is Thy Harmony Manifest, and that's like a good way to get in contact with me. But also, if you are already friends with me, just reach out and send me a message. That's pretty much how most people get in touch with me. And I look through my messages all the time to make sure that, even if it's like not one of my friends, like that they can, come and talk to me. I think I'm the only Molly Mae that's on the internet, so it's not that hard to find me, which is nice.
Branding.
Yeah, I was like, this is really great. But yeah, so those are my two places that you can find me. But also, if you even want to send me an email, I have my email is molly.mcd865@gmail.com. It's pretty easy.
Awesome. Well, we've been like, hanging out on the web. And so it was so nice to like see you face to face and hear your story
Yeah, you too.
and everything. So
I'm so grateful that you asked me to be on your podcast and just on here in general. I think what you're cultivating is so needed, especially in our small little Knoxville community. I think there's so much life that you can give to that. So thank you for letting me be on here. So yeah.
I had a reading with Victoria Farley, who used to own a metaphysical shop here in Knoxville a few years back. She was saying like it's starting local for you, even though it's going to go like much more like worldwide. But like I noticed that in Knoxville, Tennessee, for people who are listening, is like overall like fairly conservative, and yet like we're by these like beautiful like mystical like rivers and lakes and mountains, and we're in like Cherokee land and much older tribes even. And so there's so much like just like spirit and magic in the air. And so I find that there's like this mixture of like uber Christian and conservative, and then there's also like a mixture of all these like magical healers. And in the 10-15 years I've been here, like people are starting to come out with it and it's becoming more visible. And I feel like it's just really exciting to see that. And not that you actually had this conversation with a client the last hour. I was like, you can be both. Like, you don't have to pick, like you can be Christian, you can do these practices. Like, you get to define it for yourself. And so I think it's just so exciting to see like some of the rigidity releasing and seeing like just the healing of communities and just like the collective consciousness like rising is so exciting to see.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, thank you all so much. And join us next time. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Divine Feminine Revolution podcast. Make sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Want to keep the conversation flowing? Find us on Facebook at the Divine Feminine Revolution Facebook group, where revolutionary women gather to listen to their hearts, monetize their gifts, and change the world.